We're gonna start by disconnecting the battery. Possibly. All right, now we want to get the manifold off, the intake manifold. Pull the air box. This PCV hose comes off on this side or up here at the box, doesn't matter. Now the flathead screwdriver, we can pull it off here or right here, whichever one's easiest to get to. We'll go for this one down here. There we go. Now you don't necessarily have to disconnect this from this resonator box. I just find it easier, but it's not necessary. This resonator and this duct and filter housing can all come off as a unit. Right here, there's a little tab we can get with a screwdriver, flathead, and pop it up. Once I get it off, I'll show you. Let me get a different tool. I'm gonna use one of these. There we go. So it's just one of these. That top pops up. So that's what you're trying to do, is pop that off, and then this little holder, this little clip comes out. Then that separates this, and then we have this plug here. Now this has been off before. This is my first time working on this vehicle, but it has definitely been off. This is cracked or broken right here. So just something to note. So now let's pull this off. There's these connectors we can pull off. Now there are red tabs that you have to push back, and then you can pinch and pull it off. So having a pick or a little flathead screwdriver can help with those tabs. And then once they're pushed back, then you just pinch on the connector and it comes off. And this harness can just pop off like that, come up like that. This hose we can just unplug off the top. So we're just freeing all this stuff from the manifold. And then there's this brake booster hose too that can pop off. Comes off pretty easy actually. All right, now on this side, there's a bracket. There's two 10mm bolts directly holding this on. They're actually just nuts that come off, two 10 mils. And then this bracket back here, there's a 13 mil down below that we can get. And that'll pull this little bracket out of the way. Two 10mm nuts on the front, and then the manifold, well, we get these main bolts out, and the manifold will come up and in and out. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'll show you as I do it. These two 10 mils come off really nice with a ratcheting wrench. Oh, and one of those 10 mils is already missing. Makes our job easier. We only have one 10 mil to remove, but ratcheting wrench works really well. And then the 13 deep socket. What's nice about these Caravans and the Chrysler Town & Countries is there's a lot of room to work with. Let me pull this bracket off and show you. So there's a little harness connected to it, but let me pull you around one more time and then show you that bracket. And that's the bracket that came off. So there's that 10 mil slot here, 10 mil slot here, and that 13 down below. Now we don't have to pull it completely out. So this side is free. Now we'll come to the front, and under here, pull this back, or up, I mean. There we go. There are, let's see, right there, and on this side, right there, are two more 10mm nuts. We'll get with a ratcheting wrench. So ratcheting wrench, one nut, two nuts. Now we'll get these, I believe they're an 8 mil, yes, 8mm, and you want to use a 1/4 inch extension, especially to get into these ones here, because you want a 1/4 inch 8mm, not a 3/8. 3/8 is just a little too fat. So there are 7 altogether. This should be ready to pop up and out. There we go. Now we have this hose here that we can pop off. Either from there or it can come off back here. Whatever's easiest. Get a screwdriver and just pop on this thing. There we go. There. That should be it. Harness is out of the way. There we go. So now I want to take rags and cover over our intake ports so nothing falls down inside. Now you can inspect your intake manifold gasket. If there's a nice rise to it above the plastic and they're still really good and flexible, you can reuse them. But if they look flat, old, crusty, then we'll want to replace them. All right, we're making good progress. Now we'll take The ignition coils out. These are getting new spark plugs when we put it all back together. 10 millimeter holds the coils on. Before I move on, I'm gonna put all these nuts and bolts with the intake. All right, coils. A good twist and a pull is all you need. All right, we got the spark plugs out too. And kind of the same idea. We're gonna be working around this area. We don't wanna drop anything in here on accident. So we're just gonna take a little bit of rag, pop it in each spark plug tube. Make sure there's enough rag still poking out of it so you can grab it and pull it back out. That way we keep the inside of the engine nice and clean, and dust and all that junk doesn't get dropped in there, or a bolt. That'd be the worst case scenario. All right, just for better access and better filming, I took the airbox off. The power steering fluid reservoir just has one nut holding it on. And then the box is just held in with grommet, so it just pops off. There's no bolts that need to be removed. And then that's out of the way. And then that also allows us to move this around and be a little more free with it. So right here, variable valve timing solenoids, and then there's two on this back side as well. What we want to do is mark on them with a marker. Let's unplug them real quick. We want to mark on them I for intake and E for exhaust, and we want to keep them where they are. So if we're doing this front bank, we want to make sure that these go back with the front bank. If we're doing the rear bank, we want to make sure that those go back with the rear bank, and mark them intake and exhaust, because they can, according to the manual, be swappable, and it'll mess up your timing. So now we can pull these out. It looks like a Torx. So I have a T25. It should slide out. All right, there we go. And again, these seals can be reused if they're in good shape. All right. I believe our valve cover gasket kit comes with these seals, but you know, if they're really malleable and they don't look squashed or hardened, go ahead and reuse them if you so choose. But replace them if you got them. How I'm gonna drain the coolant is just pull the thermostat housing off, let it drain that way. If you're saving your serpentine belt, you wanna pull that off first. Jack the vehicle up on this passenger side, pull the tire off. There's a little plastic cover. I believe there's 3 fasteners that hold it on, and you get access to the belt tensioner. Really easy once you pull that tire off and get that plastic cover out of the way. Then pull your belt off, come back up and do this. This is getting a new serpentine belt as well, and a new thermostat. So we're just gonna let it all fall down, and we'll clean it up after. 2 10mm bolts. Crack it loose, let it drain. Let it drain faster, you can pull off your radiator cap. And I'll pull it off up here at the radiator. I don't think you can see it with the camera angle, but just pulling this top hose off is all. Now that the hose is out of the way, we want to take these brackets off here. That way we can get to the bolt underneath it for the valve cover. Ratcheting wrench again, kind of a tight little spot, but if you have a ratcheting wrench set, it'll save you a lot of hassle. All right, there's one, and I don't think it has to come out all the way, but this bracket here, I think it can just be tucked out of the way, just as long as you have access to all your valve cover bolts. I'm gonna see if we can't leave this other one, see what happens. So then, 10mm bolts, let's pull our harness off here. Get it with a screwdriver, there we go. And then down below here's another spot for your harness. That comes off pretty easy, looks like there's 2 spots down here. There we go. And that's out of the way. This is all out of the way. I'm gonna unplug the injectors. May not have to, but I think it'll give us more room with our harness here. And then pop this off the valve cover. There we go. Gonna lay out of the way. We'll pop this off, our cam position sensor. This comes off, so okay, so there's a harness on this end that needs to pop off out of its spot. There we go, that wasn't hard. All right, now it looks like a series of 10 mils. Nope. Series of 8 mils. There we go. Before we pull this up, let's take our cam position sensor out. T30. Now we can pull it out. There we go. Should pull out pretty easily. This big fat ring, that stays in, that's not part of it. This fits inside, so it may look like it's this whole ring, but it's not. It's the smaller ring in the middle. All right, double check, make sure we got everything. Let me get a rubber mallet and we'll tap on it. Rubber mallet. Okay, we're missing something. It's not coming loose. So just looking at, I think I got everything. I don't know why this thing's just being stubborn. There we go. There we go. You just get nervous. You don't want to break this plastic stuff. Okay, so this bracket does have to be removed. I was hoping we'd get away with it, but doesn't look like it. So 13 mil, a very awkward spot. Let's see, what would it take to pull this cooling fan? Honestly, it looks like it just locks into place. I think it would be pretty easy to pull out. So let's do that. Let's just do it the way they want us to. So we got these connectors on the fan. And we got this overflow reservoir, just the hose. And then there's a tab on the top here, and the tab on the top here. I believe it just slides out. There we go. That wasn't altogether too bad. All of that just to get to this bolt. If you can find a way to get to the bolt without doing that, I'd say do it. But if you can't, then that's what you do. I wonder if we can just, there we go. Just, you don't have to pull that stud all the way out, just loose so this can get moved out of the way. Now this should come up and out more freely. There we go. All right, now we can wipe off our surface really well. If there's a lot of dust and dirt, you can go ahead and vacuum it first. And this one's not too bad. And then when you wipe, you want to wipe from the inside out. Just get that surface nice and clean. That'll help prevent any of that stuff getting accidentally knocked into the engine. And then our surface will be ready for our new valve cover gasket when we're putting all that back together. Kind of a twofold step here. All right, and then we want to knock off this silicone where the head and the timing cover meet, because we'll be applying a new thing of silicone there. So we got the valve cover off on this side, and the only difference getting the valve cover off is that there's this PCV connector on this end. We want to take that off of the valve cover, otherwise it won't come up. It'll hang up on this cam here. Other than that, the wiring harness in the back is just held on with these. I think there's 4 or 5 of them, so you just take a screwdriver, pry it up, the harness gets out of the way, and then you just pull the bolt and it should come up. We got new valve cover gaskets and new spark plug seals. So this is how we're going to change the spark plug seals. Take a screwdriver and you just put it on the side of it, and they should pop right out. Very little effort, and they just pop out. So this is the trick I use for getting the seals back in. The same socket you used for the cam phaser. If you notice, the top of the valve cover will have the spark plug holes and then ridges on either side. Those are reinforcement ridges. Your socket will be just the perfect size to span over the top of both of those. We'll flip it over. So that's on this side what you want to use as a backing, as a support. So let's just set that aside for now. On your new seal, you put a little silicone paste. Doesn't take a lot, just a little lubricant on the outside of it. Just rub it around. This will just help with insertion, and we'll set it in. So just set that there over the top. Then you have another socket, the exact same size. This is 1 1/8 inch. That'll just fit right over the top of that seal, and you tap it in. And you just want to double check it. You can flip it over and see if it's seated all the way. Like this one can go in just a smidge more. Doesn't take a lot of force. And it'll bottom out. And there we go. That should come out. We want to pick off any of that silicone that's on the plastic cover too. Get that off. So it should only go on one way. You're just pressing it in. All the way around. There we go. Perfect. So that's it, ready to go on. We'll go ahead and do our other one as well so we have both of them ready. I'm gonna clean up where we're putting the RTV one more time. No, I didn't put my RTV away correctly, so it's hard at the tip. I can't get anything out, so I just punctured it in the middle. I'm gonna squeeze a little out. Doesn't take a lot, just a good little drop. Put that on. And the one in the back is hard to see, so I'm just gonna use a mirror. Let me show you what it looks like. Right there, so it doesn't take a crazy amount. I put maybe a little too much there, but that's okay. When you put the gasket on, it'll squish out either side. We want to make sure our rubber is clean too, where the RTV is going to make contact, and that's where these little square cutout is. That's where it's going to touch. So just make sure that that rubber is nice and clean too. And then we can put it on. Move stuff out of the way as needed. Move that out of the way. There we go. Perfect. Line it over our spark plug wells. Looks good. You can push down to get them started over our spark plug wells. And you can even put a little silicone paste inside the rubber on that spark plug well seal. Just a little silicone paste as a lubricant so it slides over those wells really good. Then we'll get a few of these bolts started. In fact, we can get all of them started. And then we'll go tighten them down. Now the sequence is middle to outside. And these are 106 inch-pounds, which isn't very much. We'll put our cam position sensor back in so nothing falls in the valve cover. Now this pink seal on top of the bolt, we want to just put a little silicone paste, a little lubricant in there. Put that in. Snug that down. Perfect. Let's go ahead and put our back cover on. That way our RTV doesn't sit too long. And with the mirror, we just want to go in the back and just make sure that nothing's caught underneath, like a wire or anything like that. Now on the back, we have that PCV little thingy bob. So we want to check that seal. If that seal looks good, then we can reuse it. If not, then we'll want to replace it. Kind of tedious getting those bolts back in, but you got them. And just snug is good. You don't have to be crazy tight. Man, that was a butt. All right, got it in, got that in. Now let's put our ends in on this side. I'm gonna reposition you a little. If your gasket is stuck on the little valve, you just wanna pull it off. And there's a groove on the valve cover that we wanna just tap it in that groove. We'll clean it off really well. Don't spray it with brake cleaner or anything, otherwise it'll swell up and it won't fit back in the groove. If they don't look good or you think they should be replaced, then go ahead and get some new ones. And make sure it's completely seated in, otherwise you'll get an oil leak. All right, there we go. We'll wipe these off too, right where that seal is gonna mate, just so there's no grit or anything that'll cause a leak. And then we mark these, so this is intake, and I also marked it front and rear, so this is intake rear. All right, that is pretty much the technical stuff. Those oil control valves that go on the valve cover, just good and snug. There's a torque spec, but it's not very much, so good and snug, you'll be fine. Other than that, I'm just gonna button everything back up, The torque spec on the intake manifold is 7.5 foot-pounds, and then starting from the middle, work your way out on that for the pattern. All the harnesses, just make sure everything's plugged in, connected. We're gonna do a thermostat on this, and the serpentine belt. Those are pretty self-explanatory. So everything else from this point on will just be high-speed time-lapsed. So enjoy the music. Everything is all back together. We got the battery connected back up. Let's fire it up. And there we go. No misfires. Sounds good. Perfect. I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully this video was helpful in some way. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one.